How's it going, Reef Keepers? So I figured I'd make a video because I realized I don't make a lot of fish videos, but I figured I'd make a video about this girl right here. By the way, I don't know that she's a girl, but my One-Spot Foxface. And we'll see if she cooperates and actually, comes out, because the One-Spot Foxface is, in my unesteemed opinion, one of the greatest cowards in all of marine fish keeping. It's astounding to me how much time and energy a fish can put into being convinced that they are about to die, because literally 24 hours a day, that fish is convinced that every time anyone, so much as opens the tank lid to drop in some pellets, that I'm gonna die. It absolutely, it will absolutely go under the rock if I'm doing any maintenance on the tank, under the rock. She's out and about whenever there's nothing acting upon the tank. But the moment that you start to act upon the tank, and by the way, also the moment that, there's a camera out, she seems to hide. You kind of got lucky to get a glimpse of her there at the beginning. So I'll just keep talking about her and hope that she comes back out. This fish is often talked about as a good fish for beginners, sometimes up to intermediate reef keepers. I buy intermediate. I don't know that it's a particularly good beginner fish in the hobby, because they are. So here's why. Unless you have a huge tank, I'm talking 200, 300, 400 gallon tank, and you can have a bunch of way bigger fish in the tank, the foxface is generally going to end up being your alpha fish in the tank. And when a fish is an alpha fish in the tank, the other fish in the tank cue off of that fish. They all have one eye on the alpha and one eye on whatever else they're doing. And what that means is, if your alpha in the tank is a, camera shy, people shy, intimidated by a hand going in the tank, whatever, like a skittish fish, a shy fish, what that means is every time that alpha darts behind the rock to hide, or darts under the rock to hide, all the other fish who have their eye on that fish are going to cue off that fish, and they're also going to hide. And obviously, we all want our fish to be comfortable being out and about all the time, because we want to see them, right? So what it does is it decreases, when your alpha is that kind of fish, it decreases the amount of time you get to view your fish up close. And my foxface over time has come to trust me being up closer to the tank when I'm not putting my hand in, when I'm not messing around with gear, when I'm not, having a weird, camera up to the tank. She's, okay with just me standing there. But you add any other, aspect to the equation and she's going to hide, right? Another thing to be aware of with foxface is that they are a venomous fish. And by the way, this is one of the first fish I got from my tank, and I didn't know that. I didn't realize that, I knew they had spines, and I guess this is my own, now I really do a lot more research on fish, but they do have venomous spines. And if you read on the reef forums about, what people's experiences have been who got stuck by those spines, you realize pretty quickly it's not something that you want to happen to you. You're not going to die, but it's not fun at all. So that's the spine thing is one of the reasons why all the other fish in the tank, even similarly sized fish, will probably default to the foxface being your alpha, because they respect the spines. You get hit with those, you're in big trouble. So again, you have that alpha complex, especially if you don't have a 150, 200, 300, 400 gallon tank. Another thing about foxfaces, and again, just like any fish, I'll remind you as I go on, every fish is different. this may not be your experience with the foxface. I see a wide range of reports as to like foxface behavior, but my foxface loves to eat a particular kind of coral in my tank, not blastos. Why can I not remember the name of this coral? Acans. Look at that. See that acan right there? Look how the edge of it's all gnawed off. Yeah, that's the foxface. So for whatever reason, the foxface cues in on my acans and nibbles on them all the time. The foxface doesn't bother anything else in the tank, okay? But it's very possible that your foxface will cue in on a coral or two and really go to town on that coral. So keep that in mind. Another thing about foxfaces is that it's often said that the foxface is like a great prolific algae eater, a great option for an algae eater because they're less aggressive than tangs. And by the way, that's true. I see very little aggression out of my foxface. You know, she seems, when I'm just sitting in the room and, you know, nobody's pressing up against the tank or bothering the tank, she's out and about, swimming around, social with other fish. I get no issues like that. She has even played peacekeeper a couple of times between the tangs and a new fish that I've added to the tank, because tangs are generally, you know, gonna be, I don't know that tangs are real bright. They tend to have a little more aggression. They're pretty one-track mind fish as far as I'm concerned. The foxface, you're not gonna have peace issues, but they'll eat coral, one, and also they will not eat algae super great in the long term unless you are underfeeding your tank. And I don't believe in underfeeding. I feed 5 times a day on this tank. I know that's a lot, but I love to watch the fish eat. My kid loves to watch the fish eat. And I just don't believe in, like, I mean, you can see how fat and happy that foxface is. I don't believe in, like, not, you know, feeding enough, right? I probably overfeed a little bit. The feedings aren't huge every time it happens, but like they're getting food very regularly throughout the day. So when your foxface is getting regular food, they're not dumb fish. They figure out pretty quick, oh, if I just wait, I don't have to work at pulling algae off rocks or algae off glass or power heads. I can just wait and I'll get food here, you know, in a half hour. And that foxface has all of the food distributions timed out exactly. She waits at the surface for the food to drop, and she will scarf and push aside anyone else who wants food with reckless abandon. I mean, she is an absolute pig. So it's fun to watch, and then you're like, are my other fish getting, you know, and they are. I've upped the feedings partially because of the foxface, but you're kind of like, are my other fish getting enough food? I mean, like the foxface being the alpha and being so aggressive, you know, with going after food, it's like, wow, this is an interesting situation. So you have to be aware that, you know, at first couple months, my foxface just annihilated all the algae in the tank. Now the foxface not annihilating algae so well. Also, you'll see right now, you can kind of see her color shift, which is interesting. People don't realize often when they get a foxface that foxfaces have some camouflage ability. So when they want to, like when there's a camera up against the tank and they're watching it with one eye, or like she's doing right now, they will camouflage. And I think their camouflage is meant to kind of blend with rock because it gets kind of a grayish, whitish, blackish mottled look to it. When you first bring your foxface home, they'll be scared. And so when you take the bag out, you know, and look at it, don't think that it's about to die. I thought my foxface was about to die when I opened up the bag and saw her all white and gray and black. I was like, oh my God, like, you know, something terrible has happened. No, they have some camouflage ability, right? It seems to be something evolutionarily, you know, that they're, as time goes on, they'll probably get even better at it, but it's a pretty impressive camouflage ability. It's really interesting to watch, but just be aware, you know, that's part of what a foxface does. Also, when you first get them, you hear this with many fish, they will hide initially. Like they'll definitely, that you won't see them for a while. I mean, my foxface hid for the better part of a month, would come out, you know, and eat, and then would, like, when nobody was in the room, she'd pick the rocks. I could see the algae disappearing. If anybody was around, she would hide. I guess with a captive bred foxface, you're probably going to be in better luck. They'll be more used to tank environment. Mine was a wild caught foxface. I got her when she was like, oh my gosh, maybe an inch and a half. I mean, it was stunning how tiny she was when I first got her. But yeah, I mean, that was like a big adjustment. So it took, if you get a wild one that's wild caught, it's going to take a while for them to truly adjust to the tank environment. So all that aside, they do have really cool personalities. They're very peaceful. Like I said, I've had, and again, I'm generalizing based on my experience. If you watch Fish of Hex, he had a foxface that was so problematic and vicious that he had to remove it. So keep in mind, there's a mean streak that can appear. But I was surprised when I saw that video from him, because mine literally has played peacekeeper between fish. And I think I've read more along the lines of the foxface being a very peaceful fish than I have like read or seen the Fish of Hex experience with his foxface. So any fish can go rogue, you know, go into any fish, expecting, the worst. And that way you're pleasantly surprised if the best happens. But my experience is I wouldn't ever push people away from a foxface, but you got to be very aware of where they are in the tank when you're cleaning the tank, so you don't get spined if they freak out. Mine's never freaked out, but not to that extent, but you got to watch out. I do not want to get stuck. And just understand, they're pigs. They'll likely stop eating algae unless you're slightly underfeeding the tank. They may pick on your coral, right? And if you get a rogue one, like Fish of Hex, you might have a nightmare scenario. But all this is to say, I don't think it's really a beginner fish. It's not like some goby, it's not like a big goby. It's its own deal. It has its own personality, and it's an alpha fish for sure, especially if that ends up being your biggest fish or tied with your biggest fish. The tie break is the spines, so it'll win the tie break. Yeah, look at it camouflaging right now because it can see me. It's just watching me as I approach with this camera. So they're really cool. As you can see, they're very, very interesting. But they are just a finicky, odd fish. My daughter named this fish, we don't know if it's a boy or girl. She named it the Queen. She's like, my daughter said, that's the queen of the tank. And she is the queen of the tank. It's undisputed. The other fish look to her for all their cues. So if you get one, I would kind of expect the same unless you have a giant tank. So, all right, guys. That's a bit, probably a long video, but that's a bit on foxface behavior and my experience having a foxface for, quite a while now, for the whole life of this tank. So, all right. Hope you guys are having a good week. Have a good one.